There's one aspect of preparing a successful Black Friday campaign that most people ignore, and that has everything to do with your email list. It's a tactic that protects your deliverability and boosts the chances of your open rate staying consistent or even going up. It also reduces the likelihood of getting marked as spam or seeing high unsubscribe rate. And if you don't do this, then even the best sales copy is going to flop. Hey, you're listening to Master the Inbox, the podcast where course creators, coaches, and consultants learn how to sell with email in a non-spammy way. I'm your host, Monica Badiou, a customer-centric email copywriter, course creator, and entrepreneur. And today I'm joined by Martina Viljevac, the best project manager I know. Martina is a tech enthusiast and web developer with a keen eye for detail. She works in project management, focusing on funnel building and automation for online course creators. Her specialty is creating detailed plans and ensuring everything runs smoothly according to those plans. And I work with her at DDM, and I can 100% say that is actually true. She's amazing. And today we're going to talk about the importance of re-engaging your email list and cleaning it up right before Black Friday. So welcome, Martina. I'm so happy to have you on this show, and I'm honestly quite excited about what's about to come.
Hey, Monica. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to get through this with you. Happy to see you. And yeah, let's get into it.
So first things first, what is re-engagement and why does it matter?
So a re-engagement is a set of emails that you send to your unengaged audience with the goal of them reading them, nurturing them back to health, and then becoming a part of your healthy engaged list, getting them to expect your emails, getting them to be excited to read them, and not just be the dead weight on your email list that you're kind of just having there. You have to pay for them. They're not reading it. So you want them to be engaged and want them to just expect the next email. It's very, very natural that some people become unengaged. That's just what happens. So every once in a while, usually twice a year, we recommend doing a re-engagement campaign. It matters because at the same time, there's no reason to have them on the list if they're not reading the emails, but they could hurt your email list health. Just because you're sending the emails to them, they're not reading them, it's more likely you end up in a spam folder. It's more likely for Google and Yahoo to think of you as a spammer. And that just hurts your deliverability so much without any positives. At least I don't see any. So especially for Black Friday, when you're going to be sending a lot more emails, hopefully, you want the list to be healthy so that your emails go through everyone's inboxes, everyone reads them, and you know what you're dealing with. You know the email size that you have at the moment.
That's awesome. Pretty good explanation. And I wanted to have this one-on-one with you because in previous episodes, I talked to Andrew Kordek and Matt Brown, and they're both deliverability experts and they work with specific industries. And we talked about like the philosophy of it. We got some pretty good insights about what's happening in Q4 when like everybody's inboxes are getting filled with promotional messages. And we talked about how spam filters are actually on high alert, so they'll be paying a lot more attention to this. And because Black Friday it still is one of the most profitable times of the year, it's really important to see how those concepts are actually applied in practice. And over the years, you and I have worked on specific Black Friday campaigns, and some were awesome and we saw some amazing results. It's one of the best feelings at the end of like a nightmarish month of preparing, scheduling, and testing to see those numbers coming in. But we've also seen campaigns that kind of sucked. And one of the reasons it sucked was this specific thing, deliverability and not getting the re-engagement campaign in place early on. So before we go into the nitty-gritty of actually implementing a re-engagement campaign, I want to know from your experience, what was the most successful re-engagement campaign you've helped clients with?
There's one example that I always remember when I talk about this. They had a huge email list. There was like 2 million people. However, 920,000 of them were unengaged, which was a shame. You pay for all these people. You think you have them. Your email list is twice as big as you think you have. You don't have access to them. So we did a re-engagement sequence the same way I'm going to explain now. We sent 2 sets of 4 emails. After the first set, we re-engaged 130,000 people. After the second set, because the open rate was still pretty high, we re-engaged 100,000 more. That's 230,000. That's like 20%. It was unbelievable. I remember the client being just excited about it, couldn't believe it. We had all the KPIs throughout the process. It was amazing. So that's like 230 people that otherwise wouldn't have been on the list, or especially before Black Friday. They would be just repulsed by the promo emails. This way, they got a nice gift, they got nurtured back to health, and it was so amazing.
I think I remember one campaign where out of the re-engaged segment, I think it was like 17% of people who re-engaged actually bought for
Mm-hmm.
Black Friday. That's a pretty cool way to show how effective this is, because that's like 70% buyers wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you want. You want them to become buyers, to just read your emails and get to know your offers again. It's natural that they, at some point, kind of fall off the list, and then you need to show them who you are again, reintroduce yourself, and it's all starting from scratch, which is great.
Cool. So what does it mean to re-engage someone? How do you count that they re-engaged?
So there's two approaches to this. One of them is more strict. It's counting people who click on your re-engagement emails as re-engaged. The other one is more chill. It's counting people who open the emails. Both of them work. It kind of depends on what you want to achieve. If you have a pretty healthy list and do this regularly, clicking is a good way to do so. If you have high ticket offers and you know you want those people who re-engage to be in the moment and basically purposefully click on the link and stay on the list, that's pretty fine. In my experience, the open rate works just as well. So if a person opens an email, you count them as re-engaged, but you don't do just that. You send them through a nurture sequence so that they haven't opened just one email and maybe randomly saw the email on the bus. You put them through a sequence of nurture emails so that once they are gone through that, they are kind of like a new subscriber. Both approaches work. It's kind of personal preference. You can see what your goals are and what numbers you expect to get. Open rate is more for saving a larger number of people, but they are just naturally less quality. However, if you have a nurture sequence at the back of it, it's a nice way to make sure that those people you count as re-engaged are actually re-engaged because they got to know you all over again.
I love that you mentioned the nurture sequence, because a lot of people, they just like, oh, we got them to open the email. Now let's just send them a sales offer. I'm sure they're going to buy. And it doesn't work like that. And we've seen cases of people who had like massive lists that were created with like giveaways, and then those people became disengaged. And even though the brand was like, we're an authority in our niche, but if that's the reason that person got on your email list just to get something for free, then you still need to bring that person back and show them the value of them receiving your emails. And that's where the nurture emails come in. Okay, so I heard segmentation here. And over the last few months, every time I talked with course creators, segmentation was like, okay, sure, buyer and non-buyer. And then I told them, no, engaged and disengaged. And they were like, what do you mean engaged and disengaged? So can you tell us, like, how do you segment an audience for re-engagement purposes?
Yes, so this highly depends on your email CRM, what you're using. I know ConvertKit has this pretty well set up. HubSpot too. ActiveCampaign requires some automation set up beforehand, but all of them at some point allow you to see, okay, this is how many people on my list have opened an email in the last 1 month, in the last 3 months, and then more than 3 months. I'd say when it comes to segmentation, it's very important that you first look at your numbers. They could surprise you. If you send emails, let's say once a month or once every few months, it's very likely you're going to have half of the list who hasn't opened any emails in the last 6 months just because you haven't given them a chance to. If you send emails regularly, then I would suggest counting them as unengaged if it's been more than a month, maybe 2 months. You can see the numbers there. So for more engaged lists and more emails you sent, more than 1 month of unengagement is enough. I would segment it that way. However, if you send less emails, that's too strict. You're going to have 70% of your email list there. So you could be more chill and say people who haven't opened any emails in more than 3 or 6 months. That's pretty good. So your CRM allows you to track that. You've been sending your emails. You want to know what their engagement has been like. We're talking about email opens, not email clicks. That's a completely different thing. So you can check that out for yourself and then decide on what's the cutoff point where you want to count someone as unengaged. My go-to is 3 months. So you can see if that applies to you and then if you want to adjust it in any direction.
Well, that should clarify it. So let's talk about the actual re-engagement emails. How many emails should we send? One email, two email?
Hmm. We've tested this a bunch. We went from 7 emails to tested 3 emails. In my experience, the best number is four. So you write 4 emails, all promoting the same thing, and you send it to the unengaged audience. It's very, very likely that once you run that for a week, people are on vacation, they're busy, they haven't opened this week. You could reuse the same emails for the unengaged audience 2 weeks after. So that's two sets of the same 4 emails. The emails themselves include, you basically can be super transparent. Honesty is the best policy. You tell them, hey, you haven't opened my emails in a while. How come? If you want, I have a free gift for you, a welcome back gift. Click here if you want it. If you don't want to be on the list and don't want me to bother you anymore, click the unsubscribe link. There is no hurt in people clicking unsubscribe there, because at the end of this, you would probably delete them too. So if they want to do it themselves, that's perfectly fine. It's a very transparent way of doing that. So 4 emails, each very short, very straight to the point. Think of the people who are receiving this. They're not going to read your whole story. They just want to get straight to the point. Tell me what's in it for me, what's the deal, and that's it.
I've written some of those.
Yeah. Yeah, you've written some of the best performing re-engagement campaigns I've worked on. That's
Okay, I did not know that, but that's cool. I won the numbers. So for me, when I write those type of re-engagement emails, I try to think of, okay, what's the brand, what's the audience, and then what's like the biggest problem of the audience and why they actually signed up for this email list in the first place. What do they want? And I'm kind of writing those re-engagement emails to go back into, so you have this problem. Do you still need help with it? If you do, get this. And I love that sometimes you can play around with like the tone of voice. And some of those emails can be, at least one of them, can be super scary. Like, we're going to delete your account in 3 days. Take action now. That's usually pretty effective, but it's kind of like scary. Or you can take like, hey, should we break up? Which is something that I've seen a lot more people do in my inbox. It's weird though to get like, should we break up? An email like that 2 or 3 times a year whenever I stop opening their emails. But yeah, it works.
it works. I mean, remember how for email promotions we do gain, logic, fear? Different things work for different audiences. It's perfectly fine to align this to what your audience likes.
And what happens after the re-engagement email? So they can re-engage themselves if they open or if they click. They can unsubscribe themselves. If they do click or open from the first email, they're not going to receive the other emails, right? But they're going to go into the nurture sequence. Can you tell us more about the nurture sequence?
This is a very important part. As Monica mentioned above, there is almost no purpose in re-engaging someone and sending them straight to your promo emails. People do not like that. You probably do not like that. So you want to reintroduce yourself. Think of the people, oh, I haven't opened any of the emails from this person in 3 months. They probably forgot how they got on the list, but they've opened that one email where you gave them something for free or you had a very compelling headline. They read it and decided to stay on the list. At that point, you want to send them back. I'd say this is very similar to the welcome email sequence that you have. If you want to repurpose stuff from there, that's perfectly fine. So you want to reintroduce yourself, what you do, what your goal is, maybe share some testimonials from your community, share what you do. Do not promote to them. Definitely don't sell them anything. They're not going to buy probably. So 5 to 10 emails in the nurture sequence is perfectly fine, however much you want to have, just because you might want to be sure that these people are definitely going to stay on the list. That's when you do more emails. So the nurture sequence is, think of you talking to them over a cup of coffee, telling them your story, things that you've mentioned in the welcome email sequence, things that they would like to hear, free advice. Everybody loves advice. Hey, you're probably at this point of your journey. Here's what you can have here. You can share one of your lead magnets too. So anything that would get them to see, oh wow, I'm glad that I stayed on this list. Now this is very, very useful for me. I am getting something in return. I'm not unsubscribing. The next time you email me, I'm going to check it out, even if it's a promo email.
And I think the main goal here is like open and maybe click. So engagement, right?
Exactly. We're going to talk about email health here, but as you are sending these emails to the unengaged audience, you want to at the same time nurture the people, so those people are clicking through, maybe replying, even opening them, so that you're kind of balancing things and you're not ruining your email health by doing it. So
Should we set this up as automations or individual campaigns?
I'd say individual campaigns, just because, as I mentioned, the email health is super important here. You want to check your health regularly, daily, after each email. I like the DNS checker and mail tester, using them simultaneously after each email and then the day after too. If at any point something goes wrong, you want to be able to stop it. If you're on one more blacklist than when you started because you're emailing the unengaged, you want to be able to stop it. So my preference is doing this with broadcasts. There is no reason why the automation would be simpler. It's 4 emails. You send the same segment here, so that should do. I would definitely recommend doing it as broadcast then.
Okay, so the segment is dynamic, right? It's not static.
That is that's something to, so it's not static, as people who get re-engaged get removed from it. You can decide to email anyone who's on unengaged, and then people, let's say it's been 29 since they opened the emails, they wouldn't be targeted by this. But the second they go to the 30 days, they're going to fall into that segment. That's perfectly fine. There is no reason why you should make this segment static and only email people who, at the moment you're planning this, were unengaged. You can just pump everyone who becomes unengaged during the re-engagement into those emails. They are not connected one to each other. It's perfectly fine if they get sent like the third email first. It's only a small section of the audience. So the segment there can be unengaged people, and that automatically updates whenever someone becomes unengaged or becomes re-engaged.
How do we know if the re-engagement campaign was successful? I mean, are there any benchmarks? Should we look at, I don't know, open rates? Because for a disengaged segment, I assume the open rates are going to be a lot lower than the regular open rates for the regular engaged audience. So, what's your take? I mean, how do you decide, yes, this was a good campaign, yes, these emails work?
So it's very important to track your KPIs. We have a layout there where we track each email's performance. The metric that you're looking for here is the number of people who re-engaged. 5% open rate can mean different things to different people. If you have 1 million people on your unengaged list, that's a huge deal. If you had 1,000, 5% is kind of low. So I wouldn't look at the open rate just yet unless it affects the email health. Look at the number of people that re-engaged. By the end of the first 4 emails, the benchmark there is, it's very broad, 5 to 25%. I'd say the average is 15. So 15% after this re-engagement sequence is great. If you want, you can send again the next batch of emails, which could get you an extra 5%. If at any point the open rate is below 2%, that's kind of a reason to worry, I'd say, where you should maybe take a step back, let this load, allow more people to open this, and then be wary of the email health. If the email health is great, that's perfectly fine. You can continue doing this, but basically you're aiming at like 15% of people to re-engage. If you get 5%, don't get discouraged. This is 5% of people who you wouldn't get otherwise. That just means you either haven't sent enough emails or you've allowed these people to become unengaged too soon, which means in the future you want to automate this, do this regularly, make sure that this huge batch of people, so unengaged people, haven't stayed on the list for like a year since they've opened your last email. You want to do this regularly and then make sure that 15% is achievable every time you run this.
I love how detailed the process is right now. I think when did we run the first re-engagement campaign? Maybe it was like 3 years ago or something like that.
I
And then
think
it was like a lot of guesswork because there wasn't so much information, even like online. There weren't many people who were doing it. I remember back then I was just getting into like what is email deliverability and email list health. And then over the years, and Martina was mostly doing this, like refining the process, and we even have benchmarks now. So I'm amazed by this. And it's one of those tactics that will save your ass.
yes.
And you should be doing it at least once a year, at least once before every big launch or Black Friday. I think that's massively important. Okay, so what happens next? We've re-engaged people. We now have this segment. We can choose to send another batch of re-engagement emails. What else is happening with those people? Do we delete? What do we do?
So if you send two batches of 4 emails, and keep in mind these are very sexy emails, these are emails that are in your face, and people haven't opened them, it's very likely to assume they wouldn't open any of your other emails. Whatever you do, do not email them anymore. It's ruining your email list health. My suggestion is always to just delete them. So if you think of, okay, I've sent 2 weeks worth of emails and someone hasn't opened them, they're probably not going to open them and they're unengaged. You are paying for them and they should in theory be deleted. In my experience, people have a hard time parting ways, especially if it's a large part of the audience. It's like, oh, I've worked so hard on getting this 10,000 people. Do I delete them? Do I not delete them? If you're scared of deleting them and maybe want to give them another chance, you can put them on the side. Again, do not email them in the meantime, and you can run this again in 3 months. In my experience, it never worked that well, just because you've given them the amazing chance to get re-engaged in the perfect time, and if they haven't taken it, they're probably not going to take it. So I'm not going to push you on deleting the list. If you're scared and want to save them, feel free to do this in a few months, but it's probably that's probably what you're getting from them.
I've heard from a lot of course creators lately that they just like clean up their email list without any re-engagement. So if you haven't opened my emails in maybe the last 60 days, I'm just going to delete you by default, which I mean, it saves them the whole trouble of like writing and planning and segmenting and doing all of that. But at the same time, it's like missed opportunities. So what
Exactly.
happens with those re-engaged and then nurtured contacts? Do you keep them isolated in a specific segment? Do you move them to engaged? What happens with them?
So if someone has opened any of the re-engagement emails, went through the nurture sequence, it's perfectly safe to count them as engaged sequence. Put them in the same bucket as your previously engaged people. Theory here is if they are unengaged and they don't open any of our emails again for the 3 months, they're going to get into that unengaged bucket again. That rarely happens. I've seen these people be the best buyers after, because if you think about it, they kind of forgot about you, they got on the list again, they went through the nurture sequence or welcome sequence, and now they're ready to buy. I cannot believe that people would go through this, read all of your nurture emails, and then stop reading them after that. It's very safe in my experience to count them as engaged and just be happy about it and count them there, and then do this regularly for any new people. And if any of these become unengaged again, you do this regularly, you clean out the list, but they are ready to buy and ready to read your emails.
And that's so cool. I know Martina, I think last month or something like that, she was running a re-engagement campaign for a DDN client. And I thought there was some kind of typo because I was looking at the re-engagement segment. It was like only 7,000 people or something like that. And the email list was, I think, 50K plus. And how is this possible? I don't think I've ever seen such a small re-engaged segment or segment to be re-engaged with an email list this big. So
Exactly. If you count people who mistype their email address or use a random email address, there are some of them are here. So we do a very thorough job of making sure that people who are on the list are there because they want to be there, and we're not just keeping them hostage on the list.
awesome. So this episode is coming out in late October. But for the person who's listening to this episode and hasn't yet cleaned up their email list or work on their email list health, hasn't even been planning to do any re-engagement, is it too late to re-engage and nurture your email list in maybe the first weeks of November?
Nope. I would definitely recommend doing this. Unless you're listening to this a week before Black Friday, then it might be too late. This is one of those things where it's better to do anything if possible, than to just not do it because you cannot do it perfectly. So do your re-engagement sequence. I'd say, so let's say the welcome sequence, the nurture sequence is 10 days. Your Black Friday email starts on the 20th. Let's say by November 10th, you want to have all of the re-engagement emails to have gone out. You've been writing your own emails. You can do this quickly. The emails don't have to be long. You can follow the structure of, hey, I'm contacting you because of this reason. Here's the free welcome back gift. You can repurpose any of your lead magnets and stuff. You reuse any of the YouTube videos, create a welcome back gift of stuff that already exists. This does not have to be a lot of effort. And then just the unsubscribe option. So for writing those emails and putting them back into the welcome sequence, I say a week of prep is enough. If you start in early November, that's perfectly fine. I would rather do that, rush it through and have some results than to leave those people on the email list and then have a lousy Black Friday just because you've emailed 10,000 people who aren't even opening this. And then you're like, oh, but the benchmark is this much. I haven't achieved it. That's just because people haven't been reading this. You can do this. You can do this very quickly. And again, you can repurpose as much as you have. As long as the subject lines are very nice and compelling and people want to click on it, that's all you need. You can do this.
And I mean, to some extent, you can actually use some of those emails for your engaged audience as well, because you do need some kind of re-engagement slash nurturing for your whole email list ahead of Black Friday. You want those clicks, you want the open rates to at least stay consistent. You want people to know who the hell you are. You want them to see your name in their inbox. You want them to get a teaser at least of the kind of value they can receive if they choose to learn from you. So that's actually going to be like a really good thing to do for your whole email list, not just for your re-engaged, disengaged segment.
True, true. You can think of this as a Black Friday warm up and send it throughout November. And two birds with one stone. It's amazing. You can repurpose it.
Oh, that I wanted to say two birds with one stone, but my brain couldn't think of it. It was like two something and one something. We're
It's kind
both
of
recovering from a cold.
yeah, true.
Awesome, Martina. Thank you so much. So, as we get close to the end of this episode, do you have any last words of advice for the person who's listening to this episode right now?
I'd say the most important thing here is to make note of your email list health, DNS checker, mail tester. Make sure you're not doing anything wrong. That's the only thing that could go wrong. You sending a bunch of emails to the unengaged audience and ruining the email list health. It's if you send your emails to the engage segment at the same time and you're sending the nurture segment, I've never had a bad experience with this, but it's very important to stay wary and not allow yourself to send 8 emails to just the 50K unengaged people and then nothing else. Google and Gmail do not like that. So keep note of that. It's very easy to just Google your IP address health and just make note of that. If you see any results change after the 2 emails, feel free to stop, give a break. So that's the only thing that could go wrong here. Nothing else can go wrong here. People are looking forward to your emails, the free gift that you sent. You can do this. This is going to be amazing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Martina. And for the person who's listening to this, if you want to learn more about email list health and deliverability, there are 2 more awesome episodes in this season where you're going to learn from Andrew Kordek and from Matt Brown about the concept, the philosophy of this, the why, the even like the actual applications. And then we've had Martina today, who has been so amazing to explain how the re-engagement strategy works and why it's important to have it. So thank you for listening, Martina. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. Fingers crossed for a great re-engagement sequence and a great Black Friday.
Yep. You've listened to Master the Inbox. In this season of the podcast, we're focusing on strategies to help course creators, coaches, and consultants run successful Black Friday campaigns. If you found this episode useful, then please help us spread the word, like, share, and subscribe wherever you're listening.